I'm still setting up. Going okay?
I can do that last leg. We'll switch over to something else.
Sure.
Where'd you want this tripod?
Right now there, because I have to put the camera on it.
All right, it's time to get started. All right, so we'd like to start off by welcoming everybody to the ISC Squared Cyber Guardians ISC 2 Cyber Guardians activity tonight. My name is Tom Brennan. We're the hosts for the event tonight here in the office space. We'd also like to throw out some thank yous not only to Eastman for hosting us, but also for Cushman and Wakefield for picking up the refreshments. Cushman's in the back, so thank you for that. We are trying to get the air turned up in here, still a little cooler, so that is in progress. But we also are in the middle of doing a live stream, so Alex is actually helping us do a live stream and get that moving along. So any questions that we have during the event, we'll try to use a mic to get it recorded, at least for the folks that listen to the live stream. So please be conscious of that as well. So, Ken, any words?
This is a phenomenal turnout. That's what I have to say first. I was so pleased with the amount of people here, and I see a lot of familiar faces and faces that I haven't seen yet, so that's pretty exciting also. So today, we are really going to showcase who we are and our new program that we're launching today. So really excited about it. So hope you enjoy it.
Excellent. So with that, another shout out. So ISC 2 is also is the lead organization on this. For those that know me, I'm Tom Brennan. Not only do I have a commercial company, but I also am involved with CREST. CREST International is an accreditation certification company as well. So together we're doing a couple things. With that, I'd like to introduce Chris Kay. Chris has had a very interesting background that he'll hopefully give a nice summary on. But when I first met Chris working for New Jersey, it was interesting understanding all the issues that the state was having relative to critical infrastructure, and your mission continues, which is good.
Thank you, Tom. Good evening, everybody. Really pleased to be here and have an opportunity to speak to you a little bit in front of the big announcement of the ISC 2 project that we're super excited about. I'll start off with a quick little joke. So, how would you protect yourself from Halloween-related cyber threats? How would you protect yourself from Halloween-related cyber threats? Not really seeing too many hands raised. All right, I'll tell you. Apply a pumpkin patch. Boom! All right, okay. Hey, don't worry, it gets worse. All right, so good evening. It can't get worse. All right. So everybody, my name is Chris Kay, and I am a cybersecurity advisor with DHS's Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency. What we're going to do here, kind of as a warm-up act for Ken and the team, is I'm just going to kind of introduce to you a little who CISSP is, what our mission is, what our role is, because we're a fairly new organization. And it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of you either haven't even quite heard of CISSP or maybe not even had an opportunity to engage with us. So I'm gonna kind of let you know a little bit about that. Then we're gonna transition into just talking about some of the cyber threat landscape that we're facing today, some of the things that we're seeing from the federal government perspective, and then what CISSP has, the tools and resources that we have to offer at no cost. And I'll just say that right up front. Everything that we do, there's no charge for it. I don't want to say it's free because those of us that get paychecks every 2 weeks, if you look in that line that says federal taxes, that's where all of the funding for this does come from. All right. So with that, let's kind of continue forward. So CISSP. So we kind of brand ourselves as America's civilian cyber defense agency, kind of responsible for just understanding risk to critical infrastructure, kind of being that risk advisor and helping organizations even outside of the 16 critical infrastructure sectors, just manage and understand and reduce risk. So we are a component of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, right? So there's the Department of Justice, Department of Defense, Department of Veteran Affairs, Department of Homeland Security. And so we stand alongside our other operational agencies, right, like the Secret Service or TSA, or FEMA, Coast Guard, and so forth. But like I said, we are the youngest federal agency. As a matter of fact, in 2.5 weeks, November 16th, we will celebrate our 6th anniversary, so 6 years old, so fairly new. Now, the federal government has been doing cybersecurity in one form or another, for a while, but it was kind of just put under one roof, one agency, CISSP, in November 16th. 2018. So our cybersecurity mission, again, is to help people understand and reduce risk. If we're to sort of maybe talk about cyber like a fire, right? You might have folks you have folks like arson investigators, right? That come in after the fact, and they're there to determine like the source and the means that the fire got started, right? So those are the agencies kind of like the FBI, HSI, the Secret Service. They have authorities and arrest powers to kind of collect evidence and prosecute criminals, right? And then you have other organizations that kind of come in and put the fire out, right? Like these might be some of your third party, incident response agencies. If you have a problem, you're going to give them a call, give your insurance company a call. They're going to have them on retainer. They're going to get in touch with you. They're going to really help you to stop the bleeding. But when it comes to CISSP, like our role is we're almost like the fire inspectors. We're kind of here to walk around the building and say, hey, you done a fire drill recently? Hey, what's your kind of like your evacuation plan look like? Hey, how are those fire extinguishers looking? We're there kind of left of boom before the incident in order to help you understand what that risk is and then take steps to kind of reduce that risk. I'll point out a couple things on the right-hand side of the screen here, catalyze persistent collaboration across like all levels of government and private sector. So let me tell you also what CISSP is not. I just mentioned, we're not a law enforcement agency. I don't have any arrest powers, right? We're not an intelligence agency either. We're not there just to kind of glom up information and data and just kind of squirrel that away and just have secret conversations at classified levels, right? And we're not a regulatory authority when it comes to cyber. There's a small regulatory responsibility for chemical inspections that's sort of there, but when it comes to cyber, we're not regulatory. So what's important about that is understand that when you talk to CISSP, it's voluntary, right? We work by, with, and through our partners. There are even protections for any reports or assessments that we produce for you from being Oprah-able or requested through FOIA, because we understand that we're going to have honest conversations about vulnerability and risk. Our stakeholders, or folks like you, have to have some comforts and reassurances that that's not going to make the front pages of the paper. We have a kind of an analysis element that helps to expand operational visibility and threats and vulnerabilities. We work with our other federal partners in the intelligence community to publish joint cybersecurity advisories on stuff like that. But something that I really want to point out is the second one from the bottom there. Serve as the operational lead for federal civilian cybersecurity. So CISSP is not an agency that just kind of talks the talk, right? We have to walk the walk because we own cybersecurity at the .gov level for federal agencies, civilian agencies, right? So we're responsible for setting policy, binding operational directives, making sure folks are patching systems up to a certain date, setting mandates and so forth, writing the book on that, right? So we don't only talk the talk, we have to walk the walk. Something else that I'd like to point out too is there's another side of the CISSP coin. I'm here representing the cyber side, but I do have counterparts in New Jersey, well, around the country, right, that work on the physical security side. And so just like I go and speak to organizations about cyber risk, they talk more about the physical risk. So like you can think of counterterrorism stuff, active shooter type things. They do assessments on schools, houses of worships, electric facilities, municipalities, you name it. They're out there kind of just helping folks be able to quantify and then prioritize how to reduce physical risks. All right, so CISSA as an organization, about 3,400 folks, right? Not a lot compared to other organizations in the federal government, but certainly we are growing, right? And actually for some of your students out there, I do have a slide coming up here. I'll talk a little bit about that. But most of the horsepower is in Northern Virginia. That's where like kind of the leadership is, the policy folks are, the analysts are, a lot of our technical folks, people working also in the classified space that have to go into, secure SCISS and so forth. They're all down in Northern Virginia analyzing data and kind of addressing the problem from there. But I'm part of what's called a cybersecurity advisory program. Like I'm part of like kind of that forward-leaning, that kind of forward-deployed component, right? Like if you're to call the FBI, you don't want to have somebody from Washington, D.C. answer the phone. You want somebody at your local field office, and that's the case with CISSA too. I'm a field representative, one of two. Actually, we're hiring a third one. He starts on Monday, December 2nd. Excited about that. He'll be down in South Jersey, but I'm really here to kind of do events like this, connect with people, help you understand who CISSA is and what we do, and to see if there are any opportunities for us to kind of come side by side with you, partner with you to address some of your cybersecurity concerns and so forth. All right, and let's see. The slide was in here now. So listen, for those that are students in here, understand this too. I thought I put the slide in here. I just didn't copy over. But all of our hiring for internships for those who are recent grads done on usajobs.gov. If you don't have a resume up there yet, I would highly suggest that you get something up there. But everything's kind of advertised through usajobs.gov. If you want to talk a little bit more about some of those internship opportunities, more than happy to discuss that, or maybe kind of how to set resumes up. We can certainly have that discussion once I'm done a little bit later this evening. So with that kind of concludes the first part about CISSA. Does anybody have any questions about the organization? Arthur?
Sure. How do you guys relate to the cybersecurity framework?
It's almost like you're a plan. Yeah, so certainly, no, I'll say, great question. So Arthur's question is like, okay, well, listen, Chris, there are a lot of, academic and, just cybersecurity frameworks and guidance out there for organizations, and it can get confusing, right? Some of it's regulatory and whatnot. So Arthur, I'm going to show you towards the end of my presentation an application that we're going to be using in order to kind of align within this cybersecurity framework, CSF 1.0. We didn't do the 2.0 govern yet, but it aligns identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. So yes, all of those documentations, they inform us, whether it be ISO 27000, whether it be SP 853, 66, whatever it is. All of those inform our documentations and our recommendations and our assessment methodologies. So great question, thank you. And Ed, any follow-up?
So they,
Okay, all right, sounds good. God. So when it comes to, so Vlad's question was, hey, when I see that you mentioned you have authorities over the chemical industry, don't you also, doesn't CISSA also have authorities over the water sector, right? So that's a great point, Vlad. I normally have a slide in here that talks about the 16 critical infrastructure sectors and how they're broken down, because for each of the 16, there's actually a sector risk management agency, SRMA, that's assigned to each one, right? So, hospital, health and public health sector, that's HHS, Health and Human Services, right? For water, it's actually the EPA, but to your point, Vlad, they don't necessarily have a lot of the cyber expertise that CISSA has. So I'm very frequently called in, and my colleagues, called in to engage on behalf of the EPA just to discuss with their stakeholders best practices. Now, a little insider baseball, EPA is regulatory, and again, we kind of want to be like, hey, I'm from CISSA, I'm from the government, I'm here to help, right? Which was Ronald Reagan's kind of famous joke, like the 9 most terrifying words in the English language. But the reality is we have to kind of draw a line there because we want those people to be comfortable talking to us and then still like keep the regulatory stuff with EPA. TSA, they regulate the transportation sector, but I've talked to rail, I've talked to airlines, I've talked to bus companies, trucking companies and so forth. So although CISA is only the sector risk management agency for 8 of the 16 critical infrastructure sectors, we still are often brought in to talk to folks like water about kind of understanding their cyber risk, especially when it comes to the OT, the operational technology side of things. Good question. Thanks, Vlad. All right, sir.
How will you measure?
How are you measured? You mean as far as my metrics as an employee, or how? What do you? Yeah. So that's a great question, right? That's always an interesting question when it comes to security, right? Because how do you understand the attacks we've prevented, right? And so essentially what we do is we have what we call, like, as someone engages regularly with organizations, I'm required to do something called an ROI, return on investment kind of interview, right? And so we have a little survey that we conduct. And essentially, is it subjective? It is. But essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to move the needle. Hey, do you feel a little bit better about your cybersecurity posture after you've engaged with us, right? Listen, I know that's not like something that's super quantifiable, but I've yet to conduct a survey with the stakeholders, and really, an honest one, and have them say, no, I feel we're worse off, or no, we're not better. Because we're always kind of helping, oftentimes brought into cybersecurity or information technology departments to help them maybe explain to their senior leadership the same things that they've been explaining the whole time, right? So oftentimes, so one of the ways that we measure kind of how we're bringing value back to the American people is we go back and we kind of interview, and we kind of conduct interviews with those stakeholders, those key stakeholders, and have them explain to us, well, what did you do? What did you implement that we discussed, right? Or maybe even, hey, what was an obstacle to implementing something that we recommended? All right, what recommendations did you follow? What is your timeline for implementing these, right? And also, so we have that, and then of course there's sort of the broad sort of brush of just being able to publish information about TTPs, the way our threat actors and our adversaries are operating, what they're talking about, to help enlighten potential victims, to help them kind of, again, take down that low-hanging fruit so that they don't ultimately become victimized. Did that answer your question? Okay, thanks. Yeah, sure, right over there.
So do you provide risk auditing services for companies? You said you're getting
Yeah.
big companies. Do you provide such services?
Yeah, so the question is, does CISA provide risk audit services for companies? Yeah. So we're going to talk about a little bit later in the presentation, kind of towards the end, about some of the resources, about some of the assessments we do. Now, so we're not auditors, right? So we're not there to kind of come in and validate what you put down on the piece of paper, right? Because, hey, we're just buddies, like we're just friends here. I'm not here really kind of like hammer you for something you say you're doing that you're not doing. But we provide assessments for folks to use if they don't have anything else to go off of, right? So those organizations that maybe are regulated but still want to understand kind of, hey, are we meeting a basic security, a cybersecurity baseline? So we have all of that mapped out and all of that built for organizations. So I wouldn't say, I think audit's a very different word, right? So that's not something that we do, but I would say certainly giving them a type of awareness level of assessment of where they stand and some of the things that they should prioritize moving forward. Good question.
Yeah, because internally companies do risk assessments, cybersecurity risk assessments and audits, right? So once they do that, they could get in touch with you to get an opinion and advice. That's how it works.
Yeah, so generally speaking, the types of engagements that I've seen CISA have with organizations that already conduct types of auditing is maybe just kind of like using, and I'm going to talk about one of those services, vulnerability scanning, right? They're already doing external vulnerability scanning, right? But sometimes they just like to have a third party just kind of do that, right? Just make sure they're not missing anything to help validate the kind of the results that they've gotten internally. So we kind of fill that role at that type of advisory role. Okay, yeah, thanks. What else? What else about system? All great questions, by the way. You guys are a smart group. I don't get these questions. You're kind of keeping me on my toes. Thanks. All right. Well, listen, let's move on, right? Let's talk about a little bit about the cyber threats and some of the problems out there. All right, these are some recent quotes that I pulled. All right, so the first one from these company cybersecurity ventures from their fourth almanac on cybersecurity, right? He says that in 2024, $9.5 trillion, it looks like it's going to be the damages inflicted by cybercrime globally in 2024, right? Which surpasses that would be the third largest economy, right, in our world, right, behind the US and China. Phishing attacks, listen, we're getting better at it in 2024, kind of conducting those tests, and, phish me tests and trying to catch our employees. We are getting more sensitive, but listen, according to Proofpoint, and maybe it's in their interest to kind of scare you a little, but 75% say that, like, hey, at least 1 in 3 employees, the attack surge said by 75%, 1 in 3 employees. Listen, let's face it, we have made strides in doing sensitization towards phishing, but it's still like the #1 attack vector when it comes to compromise. Moving remotely has kind of introduced a lot of risk for a lot of organizations, according to IBM, with a 40% increase. Number of 0 days, all-time high, according to the CD stats from 2024. And there's another stat on here that I found pretty interesting too, because if you thought this stuff's going away, I didn't include it here, but there's a supervisory special agent from the FBI who's speaking at a conference in San Francisco in May of this year. He said, hey, listen, what's scary is the average age of people that commit crimes in the US is 37. The average age of people we arrest is 37. The average age of cyber criminals that the FBI arrests is 19. 19 total, right? So obviously, kind of, there's a younger generation that's kind of coming up, comfortable with technology, and maybe not really have the sort of morals to kind of do the right thing. So who's kind of committing some of these acts? All right, we all kind of are aware of these big four, right? Whether it be the People's Republic of China, Russian Federation, Islamic State of Iran, or the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea. And I very specifically use those country names because I want to be clear that it's really the governance of those countries, which doesn't take, you don't need to be a geopolitical scholar to understand how, like, their kind of desires and the way they see the world doesn't align with our government. I certainly feel for a lot of the people in these countries that have to suffer under these regimes. I read a book last year when I was in my shoulder surgery about this one girl who defected from North Korea. Just ferocious, the types of conditions they have to live in. So let's be very specific what we're talking about, not people from these countries, we're talking specifically about these governments, right? And whether it's because they're being sanctioned and they're looking to kind of steal money in order to fund their supreme leader's interests, or maybe perhaps we fall on the NATO side of things. Maybe it's because their strategic or extremist interest in certain geographical areas of the globe that that we're opposed to, or maybe, hey, listen, they're just interested in kind of being able to pre-position themselves.
That are adversarial to it, right? And the FBI, our partners in the FBI, are doing a good job, whether it be kind of investigating members of NSS, security, PLA, groups that have adversaries, TV, DRU, SBR. We're doing a pretty good job. They're not mug shots. They're just wanted posters. I didn't have these guys all the handcuffs everywhere. These posters are still out there. They're rolling around, still doing their thing. And there are thousands and thousands of them that are out there. So, yeah, like I said, trying to help you understand that landscape by working with federal partners, intelligence community, defense crime, and building that information, the level to do that. It's a recent report, right? I read it in cyber actors, using Google and financial activity, financial access activity. This was October 16th. Russian military fighting U.S. and global critical infrastructure, risk-taking stuff. That's September 5th. And one is super alarming to me, and probably should be to you, the PRC state cyber actors compromising and maintaining persistent access to U.S. critical infrastructure. Right? I'll talk about that all night. But we're not. Some of you have also, when talking more about threats, have seen this graphic before, again, provided to us by the FBI, and understand, hey, listen, there are a whole spectrum of people that are looking to attack our organizations, and they don't have to be just critical infrastructure organizations, right? Whether they're motivated by kind of ideology, or finance, whether they're insider threats,
or they're kind of looking to degrade capabilities of their military objectives. There are a whole host of folks out there. And if that's not enough to kind of make you a little bit concerned, just understanding the formidable adversaries we face, we have the technology we use is also a challenge, right? Because, I mean, this graph right here is showing just the number of vulnerabilities discovered in 2023, right? 26,000 vulnerabilities. So the applications that we're using on a daily basis are just kind of out there causing vulnerabilities for us. And I'll tell you something too, if you're not kind of paying attention to vulnerabilities in your environments, in your organization, I'll tell you who is. Folks that we just talked about, right? So here's Jen Easterly. So my boss, right? The head of CISSP, right? She had to speak before a special select committee on the PRC, right? And here's what she said. She said, hey, Chinese hackers easily infiltrate infrastructure by exploiting known product defects, which is a result of companies prioritizing product features and speed to market over security, right? So again, vulnerabilities, it's a major area, right? You got to keep your eyes on the ball because the adversaries are, and they're exploiting them. Yes, some of these nation states have incredible capabilities. Yes, they do. But why are they going to do all that when they can just exploit vulnerabilities in unpatched systems and kind of gain access to privileged areas, right? So CISA, again, trying to address this issue here for our folks, constantly kind of like ringing this bell. And we have a known exploit vulnerabilities catalog, where we can post criticality and severity as far as these vulnerabilities are to help you guys whose responsibility is to manage that environment, understand what you need to prioritize. But again, Russian actors exploiting known vulnerabilities worldwide, right? Another thing that CIS is doing, as we kind of turn the corner here from like the bad guys to the good guys, is we're trying to put some pressure on software manufacturers, the people that actually produce these things, right? Because I've heard Jen Easterly say in the past too, that we don't have a cybersecurity problem, we have a software programming and development problem, right? Where, or companies that are, again, quick to market, or looking to kind of build things to get to market quickly, aren't necessarily prioritizing the security outcomes of the people that are purchasing that stuff, right? So how can we change that? So secure by design is something you may see out there. It's something that we're really kind of hammering home, engaging in the relationships we have with a lot of major manufacturers. The list is like 200 and growing, saying, hey, listen, you really need to actually take some type of ownership over those security outcomes for the people that you sell products to, right? But what's really important is for folks like you, we want to kind of turn secure by design to secure by demand. Right? So if you have the choice, use your procurement power, right? So if you have a choice between two different applications or products and one's shipped more secure and one's shipped kind of like unsecured, we're hoping that we can convince organizations to leverage that purchase power and to choose wisely in selecting applications that are going to arrive in a much more secure state. Vlad, what do you think? So the NSA, I think, has a list of products through, I forget which director it is. Is it not really that up to date? No. So CISSP does not have a list of public products that it recommends. And I think that's in part because we have to sort of be pretty agnostic to vendors and so forth. But we will hammer home things like, hey, buy products that have like use memory safe programming languages or something like that. You know what I mean? We might talk very generally about product security. Stuff like that. That's a good question. Yes? Yeah. So there are actually 400 certified naming authorities for CVEs, MITRE's being one of them, right? And so a lot of these manufacturers are on that list too. When they discover something, they're able to contribute to the list. So yeah, MITRE's one of them. And again, I think it was the previous slide. The known exploited vulnerability catalog is kind of where we try to house everything as a one-stop shop for that. I believe CISA does. I know we manage it. I'm going to say we manage it. I can follow up for you. That's a good question. Yeah. What CISA does, right? Yeah, CISA does. All right. Thanks for the validation. Appreciate it. Former friend. Hey, who wants to All right. So secure by design, again, secure by demand. Someplace that hopefully you guys can now take part in determining your security outcomes. Another thing CISA does to help organizations, and this information is free for you to download today, tomorrow, next week, even though we're getting towards the end of Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We have a campaign out there called Secure Our World, right? It's got all the graphics you would need. You can download it. You can kind of, push that out to friends, family, coworkers, whatever. But it really focuses on the 4 key things that we see would reduce cyber risk the most for no cost, right? Long, strong, unique passwords and a password manager. If you're doing passwords correctly, right, you have to be using a password manager. Enabling multi-factor authentication whenever that's offered. Certainly increasing your sensitivity to phishing, and then making sure the software and hardware are up to date and closing those patches. So again, this is just a resource for you to secure our world. If you're to Google CISA Secure Our World, it'll bring you in place. You can download graphics for social media, printouts for the office, for the family, and so forth. Just kind of hammer on some of those basic questions. Some other resources that CISA offers is it's incredible that I go out and I do have the opportunity to speak with a number of different organizations, and a lot of them just simply don't have incident response plans, right? They just don't know what they would do. They haven't had even the most basic sort of who do we call, who gets involved, who's in the decision-making process laid out. So we kind of share our kind of playbooks for incident response, and that way it kind of gives you some templates in order to get started if you don't have some, or if you have incident response plans. And you want to see, hey, how does that line up with what the federal government does? We freely share that out there. And the thing about incident response plans too is they're great if you have them, and if you review them, if you update them. But until you really exercise those plans, you kind of just don't know what you don't know, right? So CISA also, through this tabletop exercise package, we have like 140 different scenarios, not all cyber. There's a combination of physical ones, cyber ones, and then cyber physical ones. If you want to run tabletop exercises at your organization, we did all the legwork for you. We wrote the scenarios. CISA folks wrote the scenarios, they wrote the questions, discussion questions, they wrote the injects for you. They're usually 2 modules each, so you bang these out in like 3 or 4 hours. But if you're looking to conduct an exercise internally, just to kind of test some of your processes, it's a great place to start. And if your organization is a little bit more mature, say you do this stuff fairly regularly, you feel pretty confident, but you want to maybe conduct an exercise where you have external partners. Either they be geographically located, maybe that they're maybe some FBI, the state police, whoever it is, your county prosecutor's office. You want to bring those folks in. Well, CISA has a national exercise that we can kind of sit with you. We're doing it for actually a municipality, Bergen County. It's scheduled for I think April. So basically, they wanted to exercise something with their county OEM and some federal partners and so forth. Month by month, we work with their monthly meetings in order to kind of get the scoping down, who you're inviting, what do you want to accomplish, what are you looking at exercise, and we will actually run the exercise for them. So if that's something where you have a maturity level that there, you can talk to me about that. I'm more than happy to kind of plug you into that program. All right, so getting towards the end here, I'm going to talk about some really neat kind of technical services that we have available. I'm going to talk about the CSET tool. I'm going to talk about cybersecurity performance goals and cyber hygiene. Right? So the CSET tool, available for download off GitHub right now, 1.5 gigabytes, and you're going to hear it right now. First, they're actually releasing a new version. Friday, November 1st? November 1st. They're releasing a brand new version on Friday. Just kind of, I think this CMMC goes from 1.0 to 2.0, that assessment. I think it's a little bit overdue, but they're just trying to keep up with some of the standards out there. But the cybersecurity evaluation tool is something that you download locally, right? It contains 60 different assessments. Some of them aren't going to apply to you because they're like water or energy or PCI DSS or healthcare or whatever. But super valuable if you're just looking for an application where you can ask some of the basic questions. It's one assessment that we point to everyone to first is this, for those basic questions, is something called the Cybersecurity Performance Goals Assessment, right? So this is 38 questions, and as Arthur alluded to earlier about the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, aligns perfectly with identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. So if you've yet to conduct any type of physical or cybersecurity assessments at your organization, and you just sort of want to understand if you're getting the basic blocking and tackling of cybersecurity down, this cybersecurity performance goals assessment is how to do it. And again, you're basically each question you can answer in 4 different ways. Are you implementing this control? Is it partially implemented? Is it kind of like scope, or you're not doing anything? At the very end, it kind of like, organizes everything. It gives you the ability to output a report. You need to show senior leadership that, hey, these are some of the basics of cybersecurity, and here's where we're falling short. You can illustrate that. You can go back to it year after year and continue to use it. But again, a phenomenal resource if you really kind of don't have a lot of tools in your toolkit to assess cybersecurity posture. These are a lot of the control areas that are covered in this CPG assessment. And I've done a number of them, and they very rarely, if you have the right person, it will take over an hour. If you have the right person in the room that kind of just understands some of your policies in the environment, they're very, very easy to kind of get through. And also for each question, like there are reference documents that you can check, whether they be NIST documents, or whether they be, whatever reference guidance that we use to kind of create that question, you can go back to the source and kind of get that there. The other service I want to kind of bring up to you that's super popular, we have over 7,600 organizations nationwide enrolled in our vulnerability scanning program, our CIPP program, and there's two kind of components. There's vulnerability scanning and web application scanning. But the vulnerability scanning, like I was mentioning before, listen, if you don't understand, if you have like an internet connected things, right, and they're running old operating systems and outdated firmware, and we know they're getting exploited, this is the service that's going to help reveal that to you, so you can kind of take immediate action. Nothing you need to do other than sign up and sign a couple pages, giving us some permission to kind of scan your stuff. We use map to kind of do some discovery, and then Tentacle Nexus to do kind of that vulnerability piece to understand if there's anything there that's potentially exposed. The second part here is web application scanning, and I'm really nervous about this since I know we got some OWASP folks in the room. Tom Brennan, godfather of OWASP, right? So, but anyways, so Qualys is what we use because web applications, would you say, are often open, right? And so we don't even we do it both as an unauthenticated user and as an authenticated, right? So we kind of get in there and see if there's anything misconfigured, see if there's information or data that we can kind of get to that we shouldn't. But again, another free service done on a monthly basis, but sign up if you have any type of internet-facing web applications. All right, so that was a lot I know. So let's review here, right? Okay, hopefully you have a better understanding of who this is, what our mission and our roles are, right? A little bit of an idea about the adversaries that all of us face, right? We are just a couple clicks away, and it doesn't matter. You can't think to yourself, oh, I'm not the Pentagon. Why would somebody attack me? Because really, a lot of our adversaries, they're just looking for targets of opportunity, right? They're not necessarily targeting you specifically. They're just making sure, are you vulnerable, or we're going to attack you just because we can. All right, and then now you understand no cost services that CISSP offers that we're kind of connected to. So with that, any questions about anything else? Yes, Sam. Yeah, okay, sure, that's it. So Sam's kind of asking, hey, you keep mentioning this word engagement. What does that look like for a stakeholder, for an organization? Is that like something you do regularly? Do you bother me every week and call me on Monday morning and just say, hey, how you doing? How's your weekend? Well, no, there's only a couple of us, so we can't quite get around to New Jersey as much as we'd like to. But I'll tell you this, for some of the technical services that I just discussed, the CIPP program, the web application scanning and the vulnerability, like I'm kind of like the waiter. You know what I mean? I'm like, hey, you got an appetite for this? All right, let me get some info from you. Let me get it to the cooks. They're going to kind of get you the documents. They're going to send you the reports, and they're going to come at you at a regular cadence, right? I'm not going to need to follow up with you on any of that. I kind of get the ball rolling. For some of the assessments, I'll be honest, like this time last year, I would be telling you about remote penetration testing, on-site penetration testing. I'd be talking to you about OT assessments and so forth. Unfortunately, and very technical assessments, but unfortunately, CISSP kind of scaled those back at the regional level. We're kind of, because of the current threat landscape and threat actors, those services, as you can imagine, are limited. So our cybersecurity division is kind of dictating like which organizations are going to be the ones to get these kind of premier level services. Yeah, those engagements are much closer. Like again, I just did one for a hospital like 2 months ago. Like they flew in a team from PNL, from the national labs, and a CISSP lead, and they were there all week long. They set up in a conference room, they jacked into the wall, they walked around and looked at the server rooms for security. Like that was super involved. They produced reports, and then we kind of check back in with you and say, hey, is there anything that you 60 days, 90 days? We're going to follow up because again, we invest a lot in those types of engagements, so we're going to want to make sure that you're getting something out of what we produce for you. But always happy to kind of talk to folks if you have questions. If something about CISSP pops on LinkedIn or in the news or whatever, and you want, I'm the guy to call. Like I have a counterpart, Jason Gray in South Jersey or Central Jersey, and my buddy Stan, who's going to be coming on December. He's going to come in South Jersey. But yeah, our job is to kind of either to make sure that engagement happens. And I might not be the guy with the answers, but like I kind of represent the agency that there's a good chance to help you. That answer the question? Thank you. Yeah.
So with respect to vulnerability strategy, you say Nessus.
Yeah.
So that is a product that's available. Our company already has Nessus and NAP. So what is above that system offers? So we run our own stuff.
Yeah. So what she was saying is, hey, listen, her company already kind of conducts external vulnerability scanning using the same products that we do. Listen, we have the enterprise level versions of them, and maybe there isn't anything above. Maybe not. But like I said earlier, environments change pretty quickly. If you maybe kind of the information, the scope, the IP ranges that you were using to scan, maybe that's changed. And all of a sudden, you give us a different set that the other people, the external scan team wasn't aware of. Now, I can't tell you that. It's just an extra set of eyes, right? And maybe it validates what you're already getting from the process you have in place already. Yeah, so there's nothing really there. There's nothing magical about it. There really isn't. But for some organizations that don't have anything, it's super helpful, right? Sure. Okay, so the comment there was one that, hey, there are some regulators that do require third-party looks at it, and maybe you could slide the CISSP report across the table, like, hey, this satisfies our regulatory requirements. Go consult, go somewhere else, right, or whatever it is. So, okay, thanks for the comment. In the back.
Hi, I'd like to know what's the roadmap for CISSP, what's coming up, what tools we have out. Everybody's talking about AI, get the sites that make available.
AI, right? AI. Someone can get through this without talking about that. All right, well, that's 2024. Every presentation's got to talk a little bit about that. So CISSP's approach is pretty interesting to AI in that we recognize the incredible potential that it has, right? To help do the same things it does for our adversaries, right? Because what does it do for our adversaries? It kind of improves, it allows them to, like, the speed, the scale, and the sophistication of their attacks increase using that type of technology. But we want to leverage the ability to be faster, more sophisticated, and kind of scope a lot bigger using the same technology. So CISSP, if you look it up, has a roadmap to AI governance that is published earlier this year that kind of talks a little bit about that. I'm not doing it justice, but I'll have to say that every once in a while I'll get something in the inbox that just talks about us progressively moving forward. We recently hired kind of a director or bureau chief of AI kind of studies or something like that for CISSP in order to kind of help inform our leadership and guide kind of the messaging to other federal agencies too when it comes to AI. So that's a big one, certainly. I'm not really an expert in that field, so I can't really kind of discuss the nuances of how they're approaching it, but other than to say that AI, CISSP is very forward-leaning when it comes to kind of just the idea of leveraging it to help us kind of reduce cyber risk for all. Yeah. Some other products and so forth. I'll tell you, like, listen, we're just kind of out there evangelizing cybersecurity, right? Like, many of you guys have been in this industry for decades, and it's kind of a lot about blocking and tackling. A lot of it is just not super sexy stuff. It's just the basics, right? And just kind of hammering that home. So right now, there's plenty of work in that space for us. And again, if we can kind of come alongside organizations that might not be as mature as others, and kind of help them understand the risk and produce it, there's plenty of work out there for that. So.
I'm looking at the scuba gear.
Scuba. All right. Okay. Well, all right. Yeah. Not the. I was dive certified at one point, but yeah, scuba gear. All right, so scuba gear, that's a good thing. So secure, I forget what it stands for, but essentially the understanding that organizations are migrating to the cloud environment or have a hybrid environment and so forth. CISSA is trying to help support those organizations by publishing like secure configuration baselines. And I think so far we have some from Microsoft and a lot of their kind of cloud applications, Google Workspace and some of their cloud applications. Listen, I know Microsoft has its recommendations on how you configure and how you do your identity and access management and so forth. But I think kind of, again, as a third party, we're building just a resource available for you to pull down and just make sure that you're kind of covering some of the basics protections, whether it's fully in the cloud or you're hybrid. But that's a project that's continually being contributed to. And more and more products are being added to that, sort of that all the time. Sure, in the back.
Our customs to develop on some underlying technology.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't hear. So you were asking if something is a product or a custom tool?
Yes.
What were you referring to?
This assessment tool that we
The
assessment tool that we are discussing.
Oh, the assessment tool, okay. So if you're speaking about the CSET, that's an application. You download it off of GitHub, and then when you open it up, it basically offers you a number of different assessments that you can walk through, like TurboTax. You know what I mean? Like you kind of open it up, you fill in your demographic information, and then it asks you questions, right? And you click on a button for references or whatever. Is that the application you're talking about? Because that's just a piece of software.
No, I was talking about the
vulnerability assessments. So that stuff resides within our environment, and we just kind of point it at whatever, IP address, CIDR, whatever you give us, we kind of point it there. We scan that, and then we produce a report for you with recommendations on remediation recommendations, right? So you're just going to get a report for that. So that's not something you need to download or anything. You just tell us what to point at, and we scan it for you. Yep. Okay. Thanks. First you, and then Vlad. Okay. Okay, yeah, so really good question. Hey, does CISSP have any type of incident response capability? And if so, like, how good are they? How quick are they, right? So here's what I'll say. I led off by just kind of discussing how CISSP has the operational lead for federal civilian executive branch agencies. So we have threat hunt teams, we have incident response teams, we have adversarial pursuit teams, all very capable teams, but they're kind of inward facing. Right? So they're kind of like looking at some of the federal agencies that might be experiencing some issues, and they're servicing those that like kind of federal government agencies. I have, however, seen on very rare occasions, and listen, I've only been in CISSP for like a year and a half, whatever. Those teams being deployed to just look to see how big it can be to metropolitan areas, but to organizations that if their services were degraded would have debilitating and cascading effects for the general public, right? Those organizations were the target of nation-state adversaries. So it's in our interest to kind of get in there, and in addition to the other federal organizations that are assisting with the investigation, to kind of understand the tactics that were being used in order to kind of socialize that. So does that make sense? All right, thanks, yeah. All right, Vlad, you had something? So the last question was, hey, you talk about scanning from an external perspective, but do you deploy any agents specific to an OT environment in order to kind of understand what's going on there? So I'll tell you this much, Vlad, I don't think we do that in incident response, because we actually have agents that are looking for specific artifacts that are used by our adversaries that help us understand whether or not it's been contained and eradicated. So they'll deploy a lot of that stuff to specifically hunt for, like when we know what's going on there. When it comes to OT assessments, what happens there is pretty interesting. So what they're going to want is a network topology map, right? They're going to see like, hey, do you have everything kind of like laid out and documented? Let's just take a look at the thing visually, right? And they're going to kind of just check, hey, do you have all of the segment? Are you doing all the segmentation that's possible in order to kind of protect lateral movement? Then they're also going to take like a 24-hour peak map, right? right? And then they're gonna kind of take a look at the two, and they're gonna say, hey, we've seen things talk on this network that we shouldn't be talking, or we don't even see on the map or whatever. And then they kind of meet with the stakeholder and they have certain conversations about the network traffic analysis. So, but I don't believe during our OT assessment they actually deployed, to my knowledge. Sir. Hey, Keith, Chris.
I was wondering if there was any kind of mechanism FBI, even the FBI, kind of umbrella organization for the health guys.
Yeah, so none that I'm aware of. Listen, I'll just tell you, like I have a very good relationship with the New Jersey chapter, but that might not be the case in Wyoming, right? Like I don't know, right? And certainly the NJKIC, another tremendous resource that we have here in New Jersey, which is New Jersey's like a Cybersecurity Information Sharing Analysis Organization, SAL, right? Because they service all the sectors. Great relationship with Director Mike Garrity and the NJKIC folks there at CISSP. So I'd say kind of what we try to do is we try to like do that organically, like and also I try to stay as close to Ken as I can. It's hard to do because the guy goes fast, right? But he does a lot of stuff. But certainly we try to do that a little bit more organically. But there's no like we're always reaching out. Like there's a crypto ISAC out there that one of my buddies was just engaging with, and there's a crypto ISAC. These things are kind of popping up all the time. But there's no real sort of overarching sort of umbrella organization that helps us tie it together. It's really kind of organically through meetings like this, getting to know people like you, and just kind of seeing where our interests align. Yeah. So you, sir, first. Politicians. Yeah. Yeah. No, I read the, yeah. Yep, I read the news too. All right. So, okay. All right. So here's the thing. So the adversaries that are involved in some of the activity that's been publicly disclosed, regulated, yes, CISA always has an interest in understanding those adversaries, right? I can't, so when it comes to sort of elections, I'm prohibited actually, I'm not allowed to kind of talk to you about that. But what I would do is, Jenny Easterly has, the past, like, I don't know, several months, she has a lot of very good information on public record about CISA and election security. I would refer you to Director Easterly's remarks for that sort of stuff. But if you're talking more specifically about the threat actors, yeah, those are the people we're paying attention to. Well, yeah, listen, I hope too, but that's not necessarily an operational strategy, right? So, yeah, all right, good point. I did see a hand go up over here. Oh, what's back there?
Thank you very much. I used to work in the critical infrastructure field that, like was regulated a little bit by CISA in terms of like, bad computer stuff and requirements. And through that, they have a platform for other critical infrastructure organizations to like share stuff to a social media platform. It was through DHS. I don't know if it was through CISA.
So are you? So, well, ISAC certainly share information, but were you talking about maybe the HISN network, or because HISN is kind of like a somewhat, it's unclassified, but it's a little higher barrier to entry to there, where you can share PCII, protected critical infrastructure information, is where you can share that. Is that what you're referring to? Yeah. On the physical security side?
Yeah, I was wondering if there's something similar on the cybersecurity side, where
yeah.
you go on organizations.
So we don't. So CISA does not have a mechanism or vehicle in order to kind of facilitate those types of conversations. So what you could do is you certainly report in any type of activity, IOCs or things that you've seen. We'll anonymize those, and then that kind of goes into reporting that we will push out once we kind of get enough. Conversations with our other federal partners too. We don't time. Okay. All right. But good question. Yeah. Unfortunately, we just kind of don't have that type of like environment. So, yeah. It provides. I'm sorry. It provides information for reference threat. What?
Hunting.
Threat hunting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Our threat hunting. Yeah. Part of our cybersecurity division. Yeah.
So doing threat hunting, you use your own indigenous software or you use the ones which is available in the market like Splunk and Qdata?
Great question. I don't know. Actually, I'm not much of a hands-on keyboard guy. For those of you that, I don't know, like, I've been a state trooper, right? So I come from more of a threat intelligence background, right? I'm more likely to break computers and actually kind of fix them myself. So listen, I've seen those guys work, right? Our threat hunt teams. They have like also like Team Rogue and Team or Stallion. I don't know. They got all these weird names and stuff like that. But like these are seasoned professionals, a lot of experience, who are kind of doing their very best to kind of protect the kind of the networks and the information systems that we all rely on as citizens of this country. Not exactly what tools they particularly use. So sorry. Yeah. Sam. Yeah. All right. So what Sam's asking about, hey, there was a slide up there that talks about some CISA initiative where you get companies to sort of make a pledge, right? And so that goes back to the Secure by Design initiative. And so what Jen Easterly and a lot of senior leadership in CISA has done is they've actually approached senior leadership for a lot of these, whether they be software companies or application developers or whatnot. And they said, listen, you guys need to do a better job. Like, this is not something that's new. Like, people don't design cars with like brakes that may work or brakes that aren't enabled when you buy the car, right? Like, people just don't do that, right? So, hey, you need to do a better job in order to and take ownership over the security outcomes of the people that you're selling to, in order to kind of raise that bar for everyone, right? You can't just ship stuff like wide open with default hard code passwords. Stop doing that. That's ridiculous. We're getting hammered by our adversaries. Can you please do that? Can you make logging by default? Is that really that expensive to do? Or like, can you just make sure that we have some basic protections here in order to kind of just help organizations? Well, listen, there's a lot of cyber talent in this room. I know some of you guys are smart people, but listen, a lot of organizations, their IT staff are just there to really hook up printers. They're there to re-image laptops for the new person, right? They're not really thinking from a security perspective, right? So what Jen Easterly is doing is she's trying to call on those with influence in the private sector to do a better job about the products that are shipped to us. So that way, when they come out of the box, there's a certain assurance that they're not completely insecure. Does that make sense? So the FDA is kind of another federal agency that's in the big scheme of the government. I'm not sure what conversations that CISA would have with the FDA when it comes to cybersecurity stuff, but medical devices, medical devices. I forgot, yeah, FDA does regulate. I'm not privy to what those conversations are, but certainly medical devices are something are notorious for being kind of wide open and secure. So, yeah. Not sure. Hey, Sam, I can follow up on you. I'm more than happy to kind of follow up on that question. Yeah. All right, guys, I don't want to take up too much time because we got some exciting stuff coming up. I'm not the main act here, right? Like I'm just kind of like warming the audience up. So, what else? Anything else, or do you want to? I'll be around later too. Probably gonna grab another chicken Caesar wrap. If you want to come by, you can come talk to me, ask some questions or what have you, students or whatever. More than happy to do that. Arthur, do you have something?
Oh, yeah, something really
Great. Yeah, it's just way harder. Yeah, no, I can give you an answer, but I can almost guarantee you'd be wrong because I have no idea. It's not something I even like looked into. So.
No, it's actually an instant problem. The AI tools have gotten so good that it's impossible to de-anonymize images of race.
Oh, because they're fingerprinted, so they're almost they're attributed back to the person. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. And with that, yeah. So I'm gonna, as a federal government employee, I'm gonna reserve my right to make no comment on that one. All right. So, all right, so folks, hey, thank you. You've been a great audience. I really appreciate your attention. But definitely, like, again, I'm just kind of the opening act. The real big reveal is coming next with pay. I talked to you about abilities, what can you do, how can you get some help, and Ken and the team are going to kind of discuss an exciting new project to that end. So thank you very much.
All right, guys, I see we have a full room, and we're gonna take a 10-minute break, so feel free, bathrooms are down this hall over here, or out and to the right. There's plenty of food in the back, there's some more beverages, so feel free to catch up on a chess game, or foosball, or ping pong, and back here in 10 minutes. Thank you.